Hello guys, and welcome to a new Star Division 2 video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you another first look, this time at the Rezerv 43rd Army, which is another of the new divisions available in the upcoming DLC, Burning Baltics. As a disclaimer, I have to say that Eugen has provided me access to the DLC for free, so big thanks to them. Also bear in mind that this is early access, and therefore everything you are about to see is subject to change. If you'd like to read the description on the right hand side, feel free to pause the video and take a look, but I'm going to be jumping straight on in. As usual, we'll be looking through all the new units available, and then I'm going to put together a quick deck. So let's go ahead and start in the Recon tab. So the Recon tab for this one is pretty simple. We've only got 3 cards available. Starts, of course, with the good old WLA DT. Good throwaway recon, as I always say. Motorozvedka, they can come with the M3A1 Rozvedka, which is a relatively good 50 cal vehicle with recon capability. And if you were to bring in the Motorozvedka, I'd probably recommend you bring it in with the transport, because the transport can be very useful. It's very fast as well. There is the BA-10Ms available. You can bring these in Phase A. And there's also a card of T-34 76 Rozvedkas also available in Phase A. The Motorozvedka you can bring in any phase, so you'd probably have to use some sort of vehicle recon in Phase A and then Motorozvedka for the rest of the game. Moving on to infantry. This is where things get very interesting for this division. So, first of all, not very interesting. Sapeli PPSH, they can come in with the M2A1 half-track. There is 15 of these available in this division. There is the Jeeps, of course, and the WC-52s. Then there's a card of Chernos. These Chernos are disheartened. You can bring 18 in A and 27 in B. These are just great throwaway line infantry, just good for holding the front line. There is a card of Tanka de Niki. These can also come in the M2A1 half-track. That's all they can come in, because there are no M2 half-tracks for them. So you'd have to bring them in with these 50 cal half-tracks if you wanted to, or you could bring them in without a transport, but that is not recommended. Avtos are available as well. Only one card of Avtos. These are actually another good candidate for M2A1 half-tracks, just because they always come in with higher veterancy, but it does make the unit cost a lot. There are 4 cards available of Sapere. Now these are some of the best Soviet infantry because they have the SVTs. They do a lot better at range than things like Strelki or Gvardia. And at close range they do have the HE, of course, that can blow up enemy squads. So a relatively decent squad, only 25 points a pop makes them very nice. You can also up-vet them generally in each phase and not lose too much availability, so that's also great. So another good candidate for the M2A1s if you're not going to use them for things like the Tankos. Then there is the Sapele Komrati. This comes with a Panzerfaust. I always found it weird how the Sapele Komrati comes with a Panzerfaust and not a HE grenade. But there you go. And then next up we have the most awesome, powerful squads in the game. These are going to be insanely good at close range. Alright. So currently we have Morskaya Avtos. Those guys have 12 Thompson machine guns, I think. They are very, very strong, really high DPS. Well, these guys have 15 submachine guns, 5 PPS 43s, and 10 PPSHs. It's actually nuts. The whole squad is just a 100-meter menace. They are fanatical as well, so incredible unit for close-range engagements. And they do have an AT grenade to boot, just to, you know, pop any vehicle that gets too close. But yeah, these are going to be so good in close-range combat. It's actually going to be nuts. So definitely going to want to sneak these in somewhere. Likely, I would say in Phase B when you get a little bit more availability of them. Phase C might just be a little bit too long down the line. You also get a card of Sapere Rocks. Now these are the 12-man squads with flamethrowers, so another really good close-range infantry option. But the nice thing about the Sapere is they can also engage at longer range with the 5 SVTs and 2 machine guns. So a really nice all-round squad for both longer and short range engagements, although I'd recommend maybe keeping them to the short range engagements because you have other options potentially for longer range engagements like the Chernos. And then there is the Niki Komrati, which is a really nice leader squad actually. I am quite a big fan of these, but they don't come with much availability in Phase A, so you probably want to bring them in as like Phase B or Phase C leaders, if at all. They've got 4 submachine guns, 6 rifles, like the SVTs, and 3 HE grenades, so actually very strong squads on their own. And then you have the standard Strafniki setup, so 3 submachine guns, 13 rifles, 3 machine guns, and the PTRD. So these are, again, better mid-range options than, say, like the Sapre, for example. So I would definitely go for like the Strafniki at least at some point in the deck here, because you have a lot of infantry cards, so you can squeeze all of these like low availability cards in there, whereas sometimes I think divisions, they come with quite powerful units, but you can't always like fit them in because they come with really low availability and you only have a certain limited amount of cards. But yeah, in this case I think you definitely have a chance to get both of the Strafniki squads in there, which are going to be really strong. Right, over to the tank tab. So this tank tab is actually pretty good because you have the mix of T-34 76s, you've got the KV-1S in there, you've got T-34 85s, including T-34 85 1944s, and some IS-2s. So this is pretty damn good. The T-34 85, sorry about the little bit of lag there, the T-34 76s, you can get 2 of the leader variants in Phase A. Then you can get the standard card of 1943s, 55 points pop. These are like more expensive than they used to be. I think they used to be 45 points pop. So yeah, they're okay. I don't know if they're as good value as they once were, because AT is probably better value now than it was. So medium tanks with less armor are actually weaker in general overall. But 1,500 meter range, good infantry support regardless. You probably want to bring these in like Phase A, maybe upvet it a bit. It would be quite nice. There's also the KV-1S available in Phase A, another great infantry support tank. It does have that decent front armor as well, so much better value for money coming out of the KV-1S. T-34 85 Komrati is available in B and C. You can get 2 and 3 of them. Nothing particularly special, it's just a T-34 85 1943 with a 1,750 meter range on this one. Then you have the 1944, which also has the 1,750 meter range, but these have APCR shells, so they actually have some seriously good accuracy. If you bring them in with the 1-star veterancy, you're going to be hitting well over 60% of the time, 63% accuracy there. You get quite a lot with 1-star veterancy on a card. You're only paying 5 points more than a standard 1943 for those APCR, which is really nice actually. The reason I kind of like glanced over the normal T-34 1943s is because they're pretty much the same as the leader card. But you only get 1 card of the 1943s and 1 card of the 1944s. But you do get 2 cards of the IS-2 1943s, and these come in Phase B and Phase C. So really good tanks. They lack a little bit of armor compared to the 1944s, so you will have to be careful about Panthers, especially at closer ranges. Even like Panther A's, not even Panther G's, because Panther A's still have more than enough penetration to break these down. Pack 43s will pop these easily from longer ranges, so definitely be careful like using these against higher tier German units, but they can absolutely demolish everything else. So a very good tank, 200 points. Also has decent HE shells for dominating support weapons. So yeah, a lovely tank tab. Alright, let's move on to the support tab. So we have these Smirsh. These are kind of like a higher number NKVD squad. They're really good to accompany units like the Chernos to stop them from running away automatically when they get pinned down. They also, I think, stop surrenders at close range. Then we have a card of Maxims available. Your standard Maxims, 1000 meter range on these. They used to have 1200 meter range. SG's also now 1000 meter range as well. So only just over the 750 meter range that light machine guns have in infantry squads. So they're not too much better these days as they used to be. 4 cards of supply are available, which is more than usual actually. The SU-152s are available. I do think these are very good now due to the 2000 meter range compared to a lot of the medium tanks now that have 1500 and 1750 meter range. So you get a lot more use out of these if you use them at max range. And you can certainly damage those other vehicles like the Panzer IVs, for example, if you hit these at range. Because the HE damage can damage those kinds of tanks over time. There's also the SU-122 in here. The heat shell only has 1500 meter range, so bear that in mind, but the standard HE round has 2000 meter range. So again, a great unit for those longer range engagements, whilst it can still pose quite a big threat with its heat round at closer ranges. So if, for example, you were using this from cover at max range, and then a tank tried to close the gap, you could hide until you get close enough for an accurate shot with the heat. And the heat does a lot of damage. It's got 12 damage, so almost always one-shots if it hits the mark and penetrates. So very, very nice. And then for leaders, you have the combat. No exciting transports for them, unfortunately. The M3A1 combat and the T3485 combat with a very cool little camo on that. So I think this is equivalent to a T34 1943, but still a relatively cheap tank commander option, honestly. Okay, over to Antitank. PTRS squads are available, good for getting close fast at the start of the game and going for those transport snipes. I still think these will be used for taking out transports at the start of the game, but I guess that's pretty much all they're really useful for. They're okay at taking out light armored vehicles, but the penetration is certainly lacking there, so they're not reliable at doing so. Just unarmored transports are generally what you're going to kill with these. You do have 45mm AT guns available. These have that 1250 meter range now, so you definitely have to unload them a lot closer than you would before in order to get any effectiveness out of them. But their accuracy is pretty damn good, so bear that in mind and definitely make good use of that to ambush enemy tanks with these. Then there is the ZIS-3. The ZIS-3, its AP shells have 1500 meter range, APCR shells only have 1000 meter range, and then the HE shells have like an infinite range, I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm not sure if it's actually infinite or if there's like a maximum range on them, but they can fire pretty far, like indirectly. I would assume their standard HE direct fire is the same as the 1500 meters range there. So yeah, I'm not sure how useful these S3s are going to be. The APCR having like 60% accuracy is actually pretty scary if you use these as more of a ambushing weapon again. I think AT ambushes are definitely going to be a lot more prevalent now. People like keeping their tanks or their anti-tank on return fire and letting them rip, because usually, like before, there wasn't much benefit to doing that because the accuracy wasn't as good. But now that the accuracy increased and the range is shorter, it's gonna have a much greater chance of hitting the first shot, and therefore ambushes are way more useful. Su-85s are available, 1750 meter range. You got 50% accuracy on that APCR, 40% accuracy on the standard AP. Very good with high veterancy, so that's what I would consider using those for. Okay, over to anti-air. Now the anti-air tab's actually quite interesting here. 4 cards available, but you've only got access to Maxim 4Ms, which are lackluster, and then 3 cards of 85s. That's kind of nuts. Just a lot of these. So these are actually pretty good at denying aircraft from landing their strikes, but they aren't very good at actually killing enemy aircraft. So if you were, say, in a 1v1 and you were just using these anti-air, not only is it very expensive, but what you're going to end up doing is constantly forcing your enemy aircraft back to the point where they end up building up their aircraft because they never lose any aircraft, and then they can overwhelm your AA because they'll have too many. Although you'd probably have a lot of them as well, because you can have 2 in phase A, and then the availability only increases throughout the phases. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know if I like just having these. Generally, it's nice to have a mix of these and the 37s, so the 37s can get the kills. We're going to have to rely on your Air Force a little bit to shoot them down. Okay, moving over to the artillery tab. There pretty much isn't one. It has 3 cards available. They cost quite a lot. 2 points, 3 points, and 4 points. Only 82mm and 120mm mortars available. So you're probably not likely to even use the Rezerv UPR in this deck, and you're probably more likely to just bring in some mortars, like some 82mm and 120mm, like maybe both of these cards even, just so you have some artillery support. Finally, the air tab. So the air tab for the Reserve 43rd Army, they do have the IL-2 KRs. These are very nice early game aircraft for strafing convoys and just any unit really, like the infantry or support weapons, and maybe not so much against armor, but yeah, definitely good for strafing and provide the recon at the same time. There is a card of the PE3 Bissers. These are just not very good. I kind of wish they were cheaper because they just don't really have any decent firepower facing forwards. You've got 120mm and 2 12.7mm that are firing forwards, and that's just not enough for the amount of time they have on target, because their agility is really bad, so they never really shoot at something long enough. Their availability is great though, but generally terrible aircraft. Yak 9Bs though, these are very nice. 4 100kg bombs in phase A, great fighter bombers. Will get shot down quite easily if there's a little bit of AA though, but where there's not AA, these can get some really quick bombing strikes in, and quite effective bombing strikes as well due to the 100kg bombs. Then there's a card, 2 cards of IL-2s. We got the IL-4, sorry. IL-4s coming in with 10 100kg bombs here, 1 in phase A, 4 in B, and 6 in C. Definitely late game focused. I think this aircraft, only 110 points. You could bring in both cards in phase C, and that would be quite a nasty bombing raid you could create there. Pretty good, actually, with the very good resilience. There's 2 cards of the P3 Bissers with the anti-tank rockets. These only have 8 rockets. I think there are some P3s that have like 10 rockets on them. So these don't have as many, but still will be pretty good. 485 km/h speed makes these pretty good rocket planes. You do have a reasonable availability in phase A. You can get 3 of them in phase A, 4 in B, 6 in C. They're just good for weakening heavier tanks and potentially killing them later on. Then there is cards of the IL-4s with the 2 500kg bombs. And once again, you can get 6 of them in phase C. Same availability as the 110kg bomb variants. So the fact you can get 2 more cards of these in C just makes you want to build a phase C bomber wing of 24 IL-4s. That would be actually nuts. That sounds like a lot of fun, to be honest. Then we have the LA-7s. The LA-7s are pretty good fighters, actually. 645 km/h speed. The armament can make them a little bit lacking because they tend to not do enough damage before they overshoot because they're too fast. But yeah, in general, with the medium resilience, they're much better than the most fighters that the Soviets get, like especially when you consider Yaks, because Yaks have bad resilience. So these are like the more chunky fighters that the Soviets get, and they're also faster. So that's nice. Yeah, quite like the LA-7s. You can also get LA-7s with bombs, but these are 2 50kg bombs. Not amazingly reliable at killing off support weapons. They are good for stunning infantry squads in the open, but that's probably about it. I wouldn't recommend using these for the bombs when you have the Yak-9B with the full 100 kilogram bombs. You also get the good old Il4 Rocket Plane. This is nuts. These things are crazy, but it's just a shame that they're not as good as I think they should be. 305mm HE rockets. Like I said, I just wish they did more damage, because they are really cool aircraft. You can get up to 4 in Phase C. So that would put up to, what, 28 IL-4 total? That would be pretty nuts. And then, on top of all of that, you have a card of the Yak-9Bs with the cluster bombs. Now, these were more or less exclusive to the 26th Guards previously. So this is another division that can now use them. And yeah, it's going to be really useful for taking on some heavier units. I love the decal there. Very cool. And you get 2, 4, and 6 in the phases. And there you go. That is the units of the Rezerv 43rd Army. So this is a division that could certainly go into the late game, and I think it'd be fun to make a Juggernaut division, and I think you guys probably know why, but we'll get there. Alright, let's go Juggernaut. We'll jump into the Recon tab. I think in Phase A I'm going to rely on BA-10Ms for my Recon, and then after Phase A we're going to bring in Mod Rezerv with the M3A1 Rezerv. Infantry tab. I do want to bring in the Chernos at some point. I'm not entirely sure when I want to bring them, because there isn't actually a lot of line infantry available aside from the Sapere. So the Sapere, you're probably going to have to rely on those. I think I'm going to bring some of those in Phase A upvetted. And I might even bring them in with the M2A1 half track. Yeah, it seems like a bit of a stretch, actually. I don't think that's a good choice. We'll bring in the Tank of Niki with the M2A1 half tracks. I think I'm going to do that in B though, for the Tank of Niki. And I might do a second card of Sapere in Phase A with a card of Chernos. Yeah, we'll do the Chernos then, because what I'm going to do in Phase B, I think, is bring in all of the Strafs. So we'll bring in these ones and these ones, because they can only come in Phase B. But then that does make the Tank of Niki kind of stand out a bit there. Maybe we could bring the Tankos in Phase A as well. Or we could bring in card of these in Phase A. I think that might be a better choice, actually. Yeah, we'll do that. So we have the strong infantry there, the Tank of Niki, and these. Actually, never mind. We're going to move these to Phase C. So we've got our strongest close range infantry in Phase C. We're going to bring in Sapere Rocks instead of a unit of Sapere in Phase A, and Sapere in Phase C instead. Okay. I kind of want to bring in a leader to fill this out a bit more. We actually don't have like a crazy amount of infantry availability now I look at it. I feel like a second card of Sapere would be useful. Yeah, we might have to mess around with that. Okay. Tank tab. I'm definitely going to bring in a Phase C card of IS-2 1943s. We'll bring in a Phase B card. Then we'll probably bring in the 1944s upvetted in Phase C with the T-34 1943s in Phase B. I'm going to upvet them. Upvetting tanks is a lot more useful now because they cost so much more. So you're going to have less points to spend, so you might as well get more quality for your points, basically. Definitely bring those in Phase A. They're much better than T-34s value-wise. And they can also act as my early game commander. And then we're going to want some T-34s. So I'm going to bring those in with 1-star veterancy. Okay, let's move on to the support tab. Going to bring in the SU-122s in Phase A. I'm going to bring in some SU-152s in Phase C. We have a lot of supply, but like no artillery, which is really weird. When I saw the support tab and I saw that we had a lot of supply, I was convinced we had more artillery, but we don't. So that's a bit strange. Don't really need to invest in that too much. I am going to bring in the Commander T-34. Quite expensive. And I might also invest in the Maxims, just because they're kind of like a cheap extra option in Phase A for infantry. I mean, we'll probably want some supply. I'm probably just going to do like a Phase B supply card. Or maybe a Phase C supply card. Let's do an A and C actually, because I'm probably going to bring in 82mm mortars. Okay, anti-tank. We don't really have much room here. I'm going to do Su-85s in Phase A upbedded. We're going to do 45mm AT guns. And I'm kind of tempted to try out the Zis 3s here, but that is a 3-point card, so we'll leave that out for the time being. For the 85, we will bring in 2 of those in the Matador. We can bring them in with supply trucks, but it seems unnecessary. I think I'm just going to do this. We'll just bring in 1 in each phase. We'll have quite a lot of long-range anti-air. Okay, so for this tab, I think we're going to do both cards. Like so. A and B. Although this might just be better to have in C. If we upfetted them, we could technically reload faster. But I'm not sure that really makes that much of a difference. To mortars specifically. When they get that extra like rate of fire as well. Let's do it. Let's see how effective that is. Alright, and then we have the air tab. So we have 4 points remaining. I don't think Maxims are necessarily something we need, so I'm going to just take them out for 2 extra points. I think I'm going to have to mess around in the infantry tab a little bit, but let's get some aircraft in here. So, of course, we're going to do this. I'm pretty sure you guys saw this coming. There you go. We might as well try and throw these in as well, these IL4s. But one thing I definitely do need is some fighters. So, where do we want to trim things down? I could potentially trim some anti-air. I think the 85s in A will be enough. And then we do 6 more in C, so that will give us 2 more points back. I don't know if we have too much in A. Like maybe these Chernos can stay, but then we remove like something like the Sapri. That gives us 3 more points back. We don't really have any leaders because I don't want to invest 4 points into getting artillery leaders. But we'll definitely put the points into some fighters. I think we'll do Phase A Yaks and then LA7s in B. Looks like we're probably going to have to miss out on the IL4s. The Yak 9s, they're okay. They're very expensive. So just got to try and squeeze a little bit more out of this. I could potentially drop the 120mm mortars and then some of the supply, put this into Phase B. That might be a better way to do it, because then what we can do is put another card in here which will give us extra leaders, and the Niki Komrati are very nice leaders for Phase B. So we'll bring in some of those, and then I can also bring in these boys, just so we have loads of IL4s. I mean, it's got to be done, right? Alright, Reserve Army. Well, Reserve 43rd Army. There we go. Well, I'll leave it there for now. We'll see how it goes in game. I'll give it a good try, that's for sure. And we'll see if we can get a massive IL4 bombing strike going. But otherwise, I think this could definitely be built more balanced, and it would still be very, very strong. The Phase A is kind of weak. It depends how much use you get out of the Su-85s. But as soon as you get into Phase B, you're fine. Because you've got some really strong infantry, loads of strong tanks, and then Phase C, bombers, more bombers than you could ever want. Alright, sounds good. This would be a great team game division, by the way. Okay, that's it for this one. I did a lot of fun building this one. Not too many new exciting units in this division, but their infantry, especially the Avtos Niki, I can't wait to see them demolish an enemy infantry squad. That's going to be pretty cool. That's it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.